Hey, it's Rachel, and for the 2025 gardening season, I am running an experiment where I measure everything that I harvest and compare that to my dietary needs to see how close I can get to nutritional self-sufficiency out of my backyard garden. I am running this experiment in southeastern Michigan, zone 6A for hardiness. I have about 175 frost-free days from late April through about mid-October, and I have about 280 active growing days where I have more than 10 hours of daylight. That for me runs from about February 1st until mid-November, as hopefully helpful context so you can compare it to your own garden and growing season. Every month I give you guys an update on how this is progressing, and this is the update for August. The garden is in full production at this point, which is helping with these numbers, but you'll see we still have a long way to go. I need the garden to deliver two primary things: nutrition in the form of vitamins and minerals, and energy in the form of calories. The paper cited at the bottom of the page suggests focusing our diets first on vitamins and minerals by consuming lots of leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, stems, bulbs, and mushrooms, and only then focusing on adding foods for calories. Energy can come from either plant sources, as shown here, with fat coming from nuts and seeds and carbohydrates coming from fruits, cereal crops, legumes, or starchy root crops. And/or it can come from animal-based foods. For most of us in the suburbs, eggs are really the only practical option, whether that be from chickens like in my own yard, or other choices like duck or quail. Let me show you my own personal crop portfolio compared to this triangle. I grow a ton of leafy greens, several cruciferous crops, including broccoli, Brussels, cabbage, cauliflower, and radishes, plus stems, bulbs, and mushrooms. The hard part for me, and I'm guessing for others, is getting enough calories out of the system. For this, I'm relying on a bunch of fruits, including botanical fruits that we all call vegetables, like tomatoes and peppers, as well as legumes for protein and root crops for extra carbohydrate calories. My fat sources are pretty limited: hazelnuts, pumpkin seeds, and eggs, with the latter also helping with some protein. Overall, I've got, I think, 36 different crops in this kitchen garden design. But to make it even harder in 2025, 6 of those crops, my apples, peaches, blueberries, asparagus, pears, and hazelnuts, are perennials that won't yet be producing harvests this year. Focusing only on what's left, let's talk about where we stand as of August. I harvested your classic spring crops like radishes, peas, and salad greens all throughout the spring, along with some overwintered carrots and some flushes of wine-cap mushrooms that came up during our late spring rains. Summer brought my berry harvests, the start of our egg production as my chicks matured, my tomatoes coming on, and large harvests of my spring planted crops like broccoli, beets, carrots, onion, and potatoes. All right, as of August, where do we stand compared to our goal of 365 days worth of calories and 365 days worth of vitamins and minerals? I'll show a chart here to track my progress over time. Calories is on the x-axis, and my days supply here assumes an 1,800 calorie goal per day. That's my own personal goal. Nutrition is the y-axis. Because I'm tracking 17 different vitamins and minerals, for the vertical axis here, I've simplified it by using the median value across all 17 of those different vitamins and minerals. Boring but important note, I did not want to use averages here. Averages can be skewed heavily by big outliers, and as an example, I have over 730 days of vitamin A. If I'd used averages, you'd be getting really misleading figures. Bear this in mind every time you see a politician telling you what your average tax break is going to be. That's why you guys will see me using median values for this video and throughout the whole series. Here's where we're at. Sad trombone. I've reached a median of 79 days of nutrition and only about 40 days of calories, and we are over 70% of the way through my active growing season. Here is the more detailed view in case you want to see the vitamin and mineral breakdown as well as the macros in the lower portion here. Similar to my prior months in this series, I am low on fat, and that's a big driver of being low on calories, and I'm low on sodium, though that doesn't worry me since I salt my food as I cook it. But I would like to see a bit more calcium coming out of here, and of course, way more calories coming out of the system. In total, my system has yielded almost 1,900 servings of different crops, and here's a full view of that harvested by week. You can see that July and August are really busy months around here for harvesting, preserving, and storing basically everything. I will do a deep dive on a few categories of crops like I do in most of these updates. Let me start with my cruciferous vegetables. So far, my only cruciferous vegetables have been broccoli. That was a big success story for me. I grew a different variety, Green Magic, this year, and it yielded really nice central crown harvests over several weeks, followed by a lot of side shoot production after that main harvest. Overall, I harvested almost 240 servings. Most of this was blanched and then frozen to be thawed and roasted later, but some of the florets were past their prime by the time I harvested them. I turned those into soup and freeze-dried that in batches to have an easy cold day meal later this fall or winter. Moving on to the berry category, this was also, I think, mostly a success story for me in 2025. The mix of berries that I grow did result in a nice gradual extended harvest, and that laddered up well with my goal of eating fresh berries every day as much as possible. I had a very small honeyberry crop, as those plants are just getting established. That came on in the spring. Similar situation with my small crop off my strawberries. They are still also colonizing their beds. I did get a decent floricane crop off of my everbearing raspberry plants. We had plenty to have as fresh eating, plus 1 counter load of jam. As those raspberries started to taper off, my blackberry floricanes started to produce, and those have exceeded what we can eat on a daily fresh basis, resulting in multiple counter loads of blackberry jam. And now, the fall crop is starting to come in on my raspberry primocanes on top of the blackberries. I'm seeing a lot more jam in my future. Switching to a stacked bar view, you can see how the different varieties help to balance each other out week by week. As these plants continue to establish and yield larger harvests next year, I will likely need to start freeze drying some of these, since there is a limit to what we can eat fresh and to how much jam we're realistically going to consume. Moving on to my root crops. Pretty much the opposite story of my berries. These do yield a lot of calories, but they all come as a single large harvest when I dig them up, that then must be stored or preserved for eating later. It was kind of a disappointing year for me with onions. I did get a harvest for once, that was great, but I lost a lot of them during the curing process. They just did not cure well and got soft and moldy. I probably lost about 1/5 to 1/4 of the total crop. If anybody out there has suggestions on onions, I am all ears. I'll do a whole separate video on the topic of storing root crops and some of the challenges I have to overcome, but for now, just know that I don't have any areas with the right combination of temperature and humidity to store these crops for the long term. I've temporarily put these in my unfinished basement mechanical room, but my whole basement has a heated slab, and that room is too warm and too dry to store these crops long term. I'm gonna have to improvise some other methods if I want to store these long term. I may put the potatoes in the unheated greenhouse over the winter, but I'm still struggling with ideas for onions and sweet potatoes. So again, if anybody has ideas, please let me know. Well, I did say sad trombone earlier. I'm not really sad about these results so far. For one thing, they're not all that surprising, with a lot of my perennial crops not yet producing this year, plus the chickens just beginning to lay. I knew I was going to fall short on calories. Plus, there is still quite a bit left to harvest. As of late August, I have maybe 60 more frost-free days and maybe 80 more active growing days, and I'm going to try and make the most of them. I'm still waiting on my grapes and my long season crops like peppers, watermelon, cantaloupe, and drying beans to mature. Those beans in particular should bump up our caloric production, as will higher egg production as the chickens continue to mature. Right now, only 2 of my 5 hens are laying, and I'm getting less than half of what I should be getting in theory. I should get pumpkins with their seeds, winter squash, and sweet potatoes in the fall. I'm curious to see how many seeds I can get out of these Lady Godiva pumpkins. It's my first season growing them, and what they can contribute as far as fat to my overall yield here. I'm also really hoping to get a decent sweet potato harvest for once. Last year was not a good year. They kept getting eaten by groundhogs. This year we have finally relocated all of those groundhogs, and the sweet potato vines have taken over that bed and gone crazy. Fingers crossed for a good sweet potato harvest this year. The last harvests out of the garden will be my winter brassicas. The Brussels sprouts are beginning to bud in the garden, while my cabbage, romanesco, and cauliflower are sizing up and waiting to be transplanted. They won't yield much in terms of calories, but they'll be good for vitamins and minerals, as well as some seasonal variety. I'll post a full August garden tour video very soon, as well as more videos in my Eat What You Grow series, featuring my best friend, a professional chef, highlighting ways to cook and enjoy everything coming out of your garden. I hope you all are having a great growing season, that your onions did better than mine, and that these updates continue to be interesting and useful. If I failed to mention anything, or if you have questions, please post them below and I will do my best to respond. Otherwise, until next time, thanks.